Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting on May the 7th. Working with me is Brian Travis and Sheila Vaccaro. Calling to order. Any comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? Daryl. Daryl's good. All right. Discussion items. Pollution reduction plan for Goose Creek. Welcome.
You couldn't hear me, guys? Oh, okay. So the PRP implements BMPs that will reduce your sediment pollution within the borough, and the TMDL reduces your total phosphorus runoff. So phosphorus runoff comes from things like organic waste, such as leaf litter, road salts, fertilizer, agricultural waste. So the borough is required to reduce their siltation and phosphorus runoff by 10%. So the original PRP and TMDL were approved in 2018 when this was first mandated. However, since 2018, the borough borough staff and myself have determined that some of the BMPs that were listed on those plans are no longer feasible. So we are creating addendums that will include additional BMPs in order to meet your required reduction. So the 3 BMPs that are going to be taken off, and this is all for Goose Creek, just the Goose Creek watershed within the borough. So the stream bank restoration, that was determined to be infeasible. Basically, there's no space for that. You need to have at least a 35-foot riparian buffer from the top of the bank. So that kind of limits your areas. And then these jellyfish filtration devices were originally proposed within the borough, but that was also determined to be infeasible based on the size of the watershed. Some of the BMPs that will be on the plan that we are calculating the current siltation and phosphorus loading are, and a few of these are actually already built. So BMPs at the John and Green Memorial Park, the Borough Hall or Fugate Park, Greenville Alley off of South Franklin. There's a few BMPs that are being proposed at the Public Works building site, that including a bioswale and rain garden. There's a bioswale being proposed at Goodwill Fire Company, conveyance improvements along South Bolmar near East Minor and Bernard Street, a vegetated basin at the end behind the east side of Magnolia Street. There are also several bump outs that are being proposed. So the bump outs will basically include mini rain gardens. So the rain gardens will provide water quality treatments, remove that siltation and the phosphorus. They'll increase groundwater recharge, reduce peak discharge rates, reduce total runoff volume, and improve site landscaping. So not only will it improve water quality, but it'll help with flooding in those areas, because basically you're taking the water and storing it before you're releasing it back into the storm sewer system. So some of the locations for these bump outs are, there's several along South Matlack Street, so the intersection of Magnolia, Union, Bernard, Linden, East Market, Lacey, East Niels, and East Minor. There's a few along Market Street being proposed, including North Walnut, South Franklin, and Union, and then the intersections of Worthington and Union, and Adams and East Bernard. So there's several BMPs being proposed in these plans, and the calculations of the siltation loading and the phosphorus loading, while they're not finalized, I do anticipate them to be above and beyond what the borough is required. And that's by design, because we're going to, once you go out and start designing these, you're going to find that some of them may be infeasible for whatever reason. You know, maybe there's several utilities at one of those locations and you can't relocate them. So it could be for whatever reason, but including many in the addendum is a good practice so that we don't have to create another addendum down the line. So the PRP and TMDL will need to be available for public viewing and comment for 30 days. And it will also need to be reviewed by PADP. And so we take the comments from the public and we will apply them to the PRP and TMDL and then submit again to the PADP. So that is a summary of the process and where we're at on the PRP and TMDL. Do you guys have any questions at this time?
The only question I have is most of the rain gardens are on corners.
Yes,
Is that going to be the plan moving forward? When we put these additional water collectors in?
that is the plan that we're thinking of right now, putting them right near the intersections, the corners.
Okay, and will there be vegetation inside of them?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have to, when we start moving forward with this through finance, Mr. Williams is going to have to come up with a new set of flowers and vegetation, I guess, to grow in those areas. And then we have to add additional funds to take care of them for funding so they don't die out and just become a concrete pit there.
Of course.
So there's different steps we have to continue to remember
Yes.
as we move forward with it.
Yes. So there are PADP recommends certain plantings for these type of BMPs in this area. And there are several grant programs that would fund projects like these.
I have no more questions.
Just this planting be extremely low maintenance, and I am begging that weeding occurs somehow. Thank you.
Are there any, besides the utilities, are there any other concerns about feasibility? Some of those turns are really tight around the corner. There's usually a car parked in the yellow curb right now. I mean, along Matlack Street. I'm just worried. I just keep thinking about service vehicles and fire trucks and stuff like that. I guess they would just run over the curb if they had to.
So that will be another thing to consider when we're determining the final feasibility of those intersections.
Yeah, that was my question.
Early on, when we put some of the rain gardens in, the nighttime, if you're not familiar with the area and it's pretty dark, people wind up inside the rain gardens, especially the one over on Neal Street where Nathaniel lives. Yeah, you just drive straight into them.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think they put a reflecting hole, like a crosshatch on there. So some of the streets are poorly lit because you know,
Okay.
the way they are. But I could tell you, you remember they just drive straight into them at nighttime, and you gotta get a tow truck to take them out. So
Okay.
Neal Street is a big, wide street.
yeah,
And nobody parks there. So people thought that was just a road. And so when you think it's just a road and then all of a sudden there's a pump out, it was a little bit scary. I don't know that you're going to have that situation over in that side of town, but
I think reflectors are a great idea. So I wrote that down.
When I got the phone call, they had to get a tow truck to get the car out. It was, I said, you gotta be kidding me. You didn't see it? Then I went over the next day and you can't see it.
Okay.
So, and there happens to be, I think, one coming down and one going away. So it's like almost like a triangle.
Okay.
Down there. So that's the only thought. Is it possible to make the vegetation into pollinator type gardens, or that kind of stuff doesn't grow?
I would have to
wetlands?
talk about the plantings with
Yeah.
VAP, but if that's something that that the borough wants, I can look into that as well.
The green team's real big on pollinator gardens. I don't know whether they grow in the wet areas. So
Okay.
it's just a thought.
Bernie, if it can be pollinator, that'd be great. I asked for this area that the gardens near Neal Street and Sharpless, and they're gardens. They're elaborate and beautiful, and we can't have something that we're putting all over the borough that requires intense, constant care. We need like some plug and play plants that are going to indoor, and we need a plan in place to weed and maintain these areas. So, I mean, yes, of course, if they can be local and pollinator, yes. But I think the maintenance of these things is, the more we add, the more complicated this is going to become to maintain.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Travis,
Thanks.
Thank you.
anyone from the community would like to speak?
Ann Carroll, 506 South Franklin Street. There is no one who wants to reduce flooding more than I do. I back up to Goose Creek. There is no one who does not want to make what goes into our waterways safer and cleaner. And I understand totally the state requirement to do it. Having said that, bump outs in the southeast, Matlack Street, Magnolia Street, etc., are an invitation for a lot of things. First of all, we have no parking to start with. We will lose parking. There's no way around it. We can't. We have none. Second, they are, as you pointed out, hazardous to cars. Imagine the young man who appeared on my porch at 5:30 a.m. 2 weeks ago, banged on my door. Now, he was the third such. I won't entertain you with the other two happening 2 years ago and then 5 years beyond that. Drunk as a skunk, he had just waked up, clearly disoriented, found my neighbor's door, was making his way down the street looking to, as I finally found out, because my neighbor didn't speak English and kept saying Uber, Uber. What he wanted, when I asked him, was he wanted to charge his phone at 5:30 a.m. and waked up two whole households, me by myself and the 10 people or so who live next door. Imagine if he had run into one of these structures. That's not a car now, that's a human being. And they're pits. You can't get around the fact that they're pits. So they're going to be a danger. We're going to lose parking. I'd much rather see, as are in other parts of the plan, tree planting, because in some parts we are a tree desert, and that is another way to reduce. During the parade, I was directing traffic, and 5 to 7 of my neighbors were at Matlack and Lacey saving a poor SEPTA bus driver who somehow got turned around, came down Franklin, headed up Lacey, and was stuck. If these had been there, she would have no way of getting out. As it was, the 7 neighbors helped her to back up, turn around. I called the police. I kept traffic at bay on South Franklin Street till the police got there, and the police had to escort this huge bus, a huge SEPTA bus, out of that intersection. If you have not, I know you have traveled the intersection, but if you, and I know you have, if you haven't traveled those streets, you need to see how narrow they are, and imagine what happens at 2:30 in the morning. We are the densest area. we have the greatest accumulation of young people who unfortunately are not always thinking. We lose trees when they're planted because of vandalism. The trash that appears at Greenfield in those things is picked up often by neighbors. And, or when it gets bad, I call Public Works, but they won't be respected. And I don't want to have a different level of beauty for different neighborhoods. But in this neighborhood, I think it's just going to be dangerous. And I think they should be eliminated and not before this even goes farther, and other options be explored.
Well, to follow up on your comment about the loss of parking, in theory, okay, you'll know because it's your area. In theory, you're not supposed to park within 25 feet of the corner, in theory. That's where these things will normally go. So I would see them getting run over more than not. But the fact is, losing parking, you're going to lose that 50 feet on the corner. You're going to lose 2 cars at every intersection.
And we know we park, but most of us drive in a way, we know that we're too close to the curbs or, the corner sometimes, but there's no way around it.
Yeah.
There is no solution unless you're going to tell people they can only have so many cars, which I'm not against, but
Right.
I don't think
Your
it'll work
thoughts,
out well.
Travis, on that, because it's in your.
Yeah, I
area.
mean, it's the yellow curbs basically. And there's usually a car parked in it, like I said, not legally, but there's usually a car there. Sometimes a car with a ticket. I do like the idea of these bump outs slowing traffic down. As long as people are aware that they're there. I think we do have a high incidence of DUI collisions in our area also. So we should expect to see some cars hit these. I think that should just be part of the expectation, driving through them. And I don't know if that has any implications to how they're actually built, if a vehicle is running over top of them, but I think we should expect that to happen.
Yeah, the borough liability, Mr. Metric, I don't know how that falls into this thing. We're all in favor of the rain gardens because they do such good work. But the fact they're coming around the corner, and as Mr. Travis said, they're going to blame us first in line because we have deep pockets, they think, until they look at our financials. But they're going to try to go against our insurance companies for these things. Where they are now are basically in the 3rd Ward and the 6th Ward, I think mainly, and right over here. In the
5th
first ward.
Ward too.
Yeah,
5th.
the 5th Ward. Yeah, so the traffic is really, really tamped down and the streets are wider. Where Mr. Travis lives, a fire truck has a hard time getting down the street because of parking on both sides. So the thought process of what goes on, there's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration. So, right. Mr. Darrell Cook.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. What are the dimensions of the bump outs? Okay. You'll see 3 for Lacey and Matlack, total 6. Is there truck traffic around that area? Oh, that's where Burr
Let's-
Garage is and trash
let's-
trucks go, right?
Try to deal with these things.
I hope trucks can get through. And were reflectors planned for East Minor and High Street?
I think we talked about that.
I'll have to check the plan if any reflectors are planned for East High or Minor and High. I don't think there is, but I will double check that. And I did want to touch on the tree plantings. So the borough is planning a tree planting program, but just to put this in perspective, the borough is required to reduce their sediment loading by over 22,000 pounds per year. And if they were to plant 90 trees, that reduces their sediment loading 156 pounds per year. So it does help a little, but it doesn't help significantly.
Thank you. Monthly reports, the borough engineer and traffic engineer. Are you coming back up, Kelly?
Again, I'm Kelly Goff with RVE. I'm one of the consulting engineers for the borough. So I wanted to briefly go over a couple of the projects that we've been working with borough staff. So the High Street Corridor, this is a PennDOT project, a project that PennDOT's implementing. Improvements include signals, bump outs, and ADA ramps along High Street from Market Street to Rosedale Avenue. This project was awarded in March to the Marino Corporation contractor. A notice to proceed was issued in late April, and construction is tentatively starting in July. A meeting, in addition to this, a meeting was held with SEPTA today in order to talk about the installation of a bus shelter at the conclusion of this project at the Linden and High Street intersection. The next project I wanted to go over was the High and Minor Street project. This project is currently in construction. Improvements include curb bump outs, ADA ramps, stormwater infrastructure, and signal improvements. This project is being funded by the Chester County Revitalization Grant. RVE is assisting with construction observations, submittal and RFI reviews. This project is set to be completed in June 2024. We have received one payment request and we are processing it at this time. The Gay Street closure. This project is also being funded by the county grant. It includes the installation of gates and lights along Gay Street from North Darlington to Matlack. Field surveying data was obtained last week and is currently being processed. The Price Street and Brandywine Street project, this includes striping in order to reduce speed at that intersection. PICO and the Public Works Department are coordinating on the scheduling of this work. And the last item I wanted to go over is the High Street Improvements Project. The borough received a grant in the amount of $750,000 at the end of March. This was a reduced amount of what was originally requested of $1.6 million. The improvements are along High Street from Minor to Magnolia. Improvements include lighting, replacement of the concrete sidewalk for brick, replacement of concrete curb for granite curb. So we are currently looking at that original scope and basically breaking it down by block so that we can determine the reduced scope, because you guys were awarded about half of what you had requested. And that concludes my report unless you guys have any questions.
Mr. Travis?
Just a comment that, once in a while we have these corridor improvements we get grants for and fund them. One of the ones that keeps coming up in terms of lighting, besides High Street, is Matlack Street.
Okay.
And it's just more of I'm just bringing this up to get it on people's radar, because it could be a future plan item, and that's all.
Is there safety concerns along that street?
Because it's dark, yes. And then I'm thinking about the bump out, so I would say
More
yes, there
pedestrian
are.
safety or like vehicular, you're saying?
Both, I think.
Okay.
Both kind of pedestrians and vehicles.
Okay.
What type of streetlights are there?
I think they're the overhanging
Well, like-
LEDs there, but
The over like this,
I
the
believe,
Cobras?
yeah, I believe so.
We could ask Mr. Edwards whether he could turn the volume up on the lighting on them, because when we originally got the Cobras, we were told through the Wi-Fi, we'd be able to adjust the lighting on those things. So we'll ask him when he comes up next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, good.
Thank you.
Miss Ann Carroll.
Ann Carroll, 506 South Franklin. Just a comment with regard to replacing granite curbs with concrete curbs. I don't know whether you all have noticed, but the concrete handicapped curbs, they're disintegrating because people drive over them. The granite curbs have lasted for 100 whatever plus years. I would highly, I know it's cheaper in the short run to do the concrete, but then you're going to be replacing them because they crumble. There's one on my little Adams Street, 500 block of Adams Street, that's just crumbled. And there's not like a whole lot of traffic on that street, but and it was a government installation that replaced granite curbing. So just FYI, take a
Not all-
look at your concrete.
Not all the side streets have the granite curbing.
Right.
Most of them have the concrete curbing. The granite ones are all in the main corridors.
Right.
And when we just did the East Minor and High Street, that was one of the requirements that Mr. Metro made sure that we put granite curbs back and brick back in that renovation area. So because we know people drive over the curbs, but back in the neighborhoods, there's no return on your investment.
And where we get rid of them, we should stockpile them somewhere and put them back in the other places.
Yeah, thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I misspoke, but that is part of the grant of replacing concrete curb segments with granite.
Yep.
I may have said the opposite.
I
for
understand.
clarifying.
It's Ann Carroll's fault. Thank you. Mr. Edwards, well, question number one coming from Mr. Travis.
Good evening. Well, to answer your question, right now, the bad news is the lights are at 100%. We have the ability to dim them if we want to save electricity, or if it's the lights are too bright, but we don't have the ability right now to make them brighter. However, with this High Street project, I think that there's going to be some lighting design with it. So we have an opportunity with the High Street project to get the lighting where it needs to be. All right. And that goes from like Rose. Well, we only got half funding, but ultimately it's going to be from Rosedale to Minor. So, yeah. Is that all right? Okay. During the past month, there were 3 highlights. We worked with DEP and our tree contractor to prepare for removing the downed trees in Goose Creek. There is an action item on the Finance Committee agenda to approve the contractor's cost of about $15,000, which I hope to fund within our current tree budget. Additionally, we received 2 proposals to perform a planning study of Goose Creek from Lacey Street to Route 202. The approximate cost is $40,000. I will be proposing that we add this project to the 2025 budget if no action is taken before then. The proposed project would eliminate the flooding in the study area, as well as create a trail along the creek, including the part in West Goshen Township. Number 2, we prepared for the 2024 paving project, which will be discussed a little later. And third, we are applying for a $200,000 grant for a new recycling truck that will cost just over $300,000, according to the quote I got, CoStars. Our existing trucks are older and have a lot of wear and tear. I will be proposing that we add this truck to our 2025 budget. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or address any comments.
Ms. Vaccaro? Mr. Travis?
I'm just glad you're thinking ahead. 2025, it seems far away, but it'll be upon us before you know it. We'll be in budget season. So no, this is good. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, there's something called a shovel-ready project, and that's kind of when you put together a set of plans, you put it on a shelf, and then when a grant pops up, you're ready to go. Well, this is kind of an engineering-ready project. It's on the shelf, and whenever it's time, it's there.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. The Director of Wastewater, Mr. Sean Mitchell. Good evening.
Evening. I have a couple things for you tonight. Going through this past month, Taylor Run, the operators dropped and cleaned both primary clarifiers for the yearly maintenance and inspections, greased 42 RBC block bearings for their quarterly preventive maintenance, changed the oil in the reducers and drive units of both final clarifiers, replaced the mechanical seal bearings in one of the primary sludge pumps, and their average flow for last month was 1.08 or I'm sorry, 1.087 million gallons per day. Goose Creek, they replaced a motor bearing, Lovejoy coupling and seals in a T6 mixer. They found a shorted out motor on one of our other mixers, and they had to pull over 300 feet of wire in the new conduit. They did fix it. The motor was burnt out. They replaced the motor. They did all the spring oil changes on the clarifiers, upper drives, for 7 clarifiers, 6 mixers, and 4 compressors. The operators went to Everhart Park and did landscaping. Show me pictures, Bill, page 2. That's the conduit pulling in. We had to dig down a little, find the conduit where it had a crack in it. We replaced it. And then around the wet wells, it was sinking from the rain, the creek washing up. So they went out and took a ton of dirt out and grass seeded it and made it flat and looks real good. So the sweetest ward stays the sweetest ward.
You know, I don't have to be here 17 years.
The average flow for Goose Creek for the month was 1.179 million gallons per day. Not brought up tonight, but it is going to finance tomorrow night. We finally got a quote back for this substation project. It came in at $1.355 million. We are looking to purchase that this year. The expected date, and my thing changed on my computer. We're looking for a possible 80 to 100 week delivery. We're going to spend we have 250,000 this year for a deposit, so we're going to put 200,000 down on it. To put in retrospect what the cost was back in December of 2020, we bought a switch and a transformer for the right side. When it failed, the transformer was $79,000. The quote now is for that transformer is $220,000. So it went up just for that to purchase it that much. So we're going to recommend the finance for that. We did send a project out to 5 major companies, Siemens, Square D, Penn Panel, 2 other ones. Eaton, Yale Electric was the only one who put a quote in. The 2 other top dogs said they had problems with the metering with Pico, so they didn't want to do it. Eaton does do it. They know how to do it with Pico, so that's another assurance for us that it's the quality work that's going into it. Any questions? That's why I wanted to give you a little back of what we spent 4 years ago to what it is now, what the cost went up. And we were lucky enough back then that the contractor had one in stock. It was right before everything was shut down. And now it's close to 80 weeks that it'll be delivered.
Thank you, Mr. Travis.
That blows my mind a little bit, but
I
I
did-
mean, is there any sense in, can we wait like another year, or is that an option?
We are
Some
living
things are
on
coming
borrowed
back.
time.
Yeah.
The equipment's,
The answer is no.
it was built in
Yeah,
in the 80s.
Yeah, no, it's-
Everything, we're living on borrowed time now. We were lucky to find the equipment that we did back in 2020, 21. Now that nobody has anything. It's all supply and demand, and we're at that 80 week. And that the transformer is the longest shipment.
We really want to get this project moving too, because we have a grant partner on this project. The county awarded Rescue Plan Act dollars to us to help fund this. I believe the number is
I believe it's just 600.
$600,000. Now that has to be allocated by the end of this year. It's been allocated by the county. We have to spend it by 2026. So we want to get the manufacture of these components going. And then once they're delivered, we will put out to bid in advance of that delivery specs to install it. And that'll probably have to be a responsible contractor ordinance bid. and we'll go out to an electrician to install it.
Correct. Yes, this is purchased under the CoStar's plan.
Got it. Thank you.
It's good that we have a funding partner this time
Yeah.
around to handle some of this cost escalation.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of it, I think, it is supply demand driven, but at some point it's going to catch up. But we're in a situation where we can't wait, it sounds.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
It's like that commercial, no mask, no hose. Hold on. I'm trying to keep it moving. Mr. Korowski, thank you. Parks and Recreation,
Funnest department in the borough. of
the
Westchester.
funnest part.
Thank you very much.
Begins and ends in the Sixth Ward. I love it.
As you can see from my report, pretty much covers April. I want to touch on a couple key things. And one being Miss Kelly here, I'm Keith. We were texting last week trying to get the guy to do the drill holes over at Hoops Park. Is that you? We just met for the first time. We met via text. I just wanted to say hello. So to go along with the first item on the agenda there is the Hoops Park Racket Center rehabilitation. We're working to figure out what's in the ground there because no one knows. Well, we know now because we had core samples drilled last week and we're looking to see what we can do to move that project forward. Again, as you well know, the tennis courts are in dire need of repair and we have plans in place moving forward that hopefully if everything aligns correctly, we'll have monies in the budget or asking for monies in the budget this year, along with the $237,000 we got in grant funding to move ahead with that project in 2025. Another item I want to touch on quick, spring, baseball's back. We're over at Hoops Park. The nets are up, the dugouts are being built. The Adult Baseball League, not the Chester County Adult Baseball League, just the adult guys that play baseball over there. I don't want to confuse names. They should be commended. They've done a lot of work in a short amount of time, and they're still looking to do a lot more work to upgrade our facilities. The league itself, I believe, starts this weekend or may have started this past weekend. There are the teams that kind of like third party barter for time on the facility started this past week. If you look at the contract of the agreement between the borough and the league, it said it had to be up by May 1st. It was up on like May 24th or 23rd, but it was up in time. They are playing there. Hopefully, again, the Nets do quell a lot of the issues that we have at the facility. We'll only know as time tells throughout this year. One other thing I want to touch on that happened in April 21st, the 225th anniversary of the borough. We had a beautiful parade in the borough of Westchester. I was apprehensive when it first started because we literally only got started in like November. And if you look back, now it's before my time here, but if you look back to 99 when we had the bicentennial, they spent 2 years working on this. From my perspective, it went off very, very, very well. We had there were several of you that were there. If you weren't there in person in a vehicle, you may have been standing on the side watching. I do want to take a time, and it's in my report, but I just wanted to put it on record. A couple of the people that really needed to be thanked for pulling that together was the 225 committee as a whole, the mayor's office and Teresa Eady, Katie Walker from the Chamber of Commerce, Michael Hartman, he's the chief of staff for PA Senator Committa, our awesome public works department, police department, fire department, our parking staff. We pulled this all together. It wasn't the nicest of days, could have been a little warmer, would have been nice, but we had a much better attendance than anyone even expected. And if y'all saw those awesome Corvettes and that really nice Mustang that were taking some of the dignitaries around, in our conversations after the fact and reviewing it, it went very well. And there were some things that I picked up from the other folks that were supporting it that I'm going to implement some changes to the Halloween parade coming up in October. So I don't know if anyone has any questions specifically about any events, projects, parks in general. I'm just going to ask them if I can.
Travis, Ms. Vaquero.
One
That's the way she does that.
Just gonna ask about the parking at Hoops Park. Just talk about parking in that lot
What do you
next to the baseball field.
They it's in their agreement that they are supposed to be parking there. Now they can technically park up and down West Ashford Street, but they cannot park in the cul-de-sac. The name eludes me, but they cannot park there. Walden Drive. Thank you. But yes, now with the netting up, there should be a significant decrease in the chance of a ball smashing your windshield. I don't know who wants to be the first guinea pig to test that out, but at the same time, the netting is significantly out. We knew going in, it was never going to catch 100% of the balls, but it should significantly catch a vast majority of them.
I just I really want to see
Charlie,
cars
in that-
parked in that lot
Understood.
during a baseball game.
I will reiterate that to the baseball league. And again, Charlie Cooper has done a heck of a job pulling all that stuff together. Like I said, they have other plans they will be bringing up in the near future, following the same path through the rec commission, through the committee, through council. And hopefully you guys see highly upon them.
At Greenfield, we have a unused scoreboard. It's been up there since 2018, 2017. Never been turned on once or twice. And it cost us a whole boatload of money. It's a Wi-Fi scoreboard. And I asked Keith to check with the Recreation Committee to see if we can move the scoreboard from Greenfield, which is just sitting there rusting and dying, over to Hoops Park and let them use it. The baseball league said that they will pay to remove it, transport it, hook it up, reuse it, and use it every night. Where at Greenfield, which it's my fault because I pushed for the scoreboard when we renovated Greenfield, figuring they would use it. It's never been turned on and nobody wants responsibility for it. So hopefully the Recreation Committee will say yes, to move it over.
But they have lost the remote control twice over at Greenfield, which cost about $250.
But they never turned it on. So, and I would like to give a shout out to Borough Council President. I never saw him go like this so often in the back of your car. Mr. McCoy, I love the way you
Went right
waved
by.
everybody during the parade. Thank you.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards, you're up. We're talking about the 24 paving projects. Oh, yeah, 24 paving projects. Yeah.
All right, so this is the list that we put together. Most of these roads, vast majority of the roads are the ones that were the worst roads from our assessment that we did at the end of last year. And it actually, I would say this probably takes care of about 70% of what was on that list. So I feel pretty good about that. Unless there's an objection, we'd like to proceed with bidding and moving forward with this.
Mr. Metric, if we agree to it so it could be on the proposal for work session?
Yeah, there's no reason we can't do that. I had asked Mr. Edwards to talk to y'all tonight just so you could see the list of streets that was going out to bid. We
Yeah.
typically don't approve things before we put them out to bid, but I don't see why we can't run it past council and do that.
Okay, you all go with that, get a jump start on it?
Has this changed at all since the one you published a couple months ago?
I think I added Poplar Alley. That has to do with the drainage issue.
Yeah. Poplar's over by you, right, Mr. Brian? Brian Travis?
I'm thinking. I rarely ever travel down Poplar.
Yeah. So it's in addition to it for 358 square feet.
Does
Yeah.
this exhaust the budget that we have?
This does not exhaust it, but it's just under $400,000 worth of work, which I understand is our budget.
Okay, thank you.
I requested that Potter Alley not be done, which is my alley, because Eli Khan's gonna be tearing down Mitch's gym. It made no sense for us to spend money. Let the Eli Khan, pave the alley, and that way there will save some money in that area. That made no sense for us spending money, so. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Cook,
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. Do we want to consider delaying Lacey Street if we're planning on putting in bump outs in the gardens?
What you see is conceptual, what Kelly was proposing, and it may or may not even happen. And even if it does happen, I think that we can work around, it's not going to really impact a new street. We're just saw cut the bump outs and then so my recommendation is that we not wait.
thank you. So, Mr. Metric and Ms. Domenico, the paving for 2024, can we move that over to the work session for full council to look at so we can get a jump start on it? 3-0. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
We ready for
Yep,
number D?
the
Letter D?
D is park memorials.
I'll give a little brief history on this quickly. And Bill can roll, if you can roll through the attachments. Thank you, sir. I'm going back probably 8 or 9 years. We first started having conversations about, in front of a lot of trees in our parks that were memorials to trees that were planted for loved ones. And they were getting knocked over and kicked around and moved, and they disappeared. And we didn't know if it was our fault, if it was the mower's fault. And the people that had put them there were upset and said, where'd our memorial go? And we said, we're out of that business. We're no longer doing that. So about 3 years ago, we got back into this conversation, and it came through the Rec Commission first, and it said, we want our parks to be vibrant, lively, happy places. And we are still noticing that more of these memorials, while I'm sure well-intended, I just don't feel as though they're the right location for within our parks. You want to go to a park to feel happy. You don't want to see a bench about, someone that lost a child. It's a horrible thing. I understand it. But when we started this bench naming process or bench memorial process, that still goes through the Rec Commission, before this committee, and then before council. And it's very specific, saying we don't want in loving memory. And my response to the people that say that, or that request the benches, think of a favorite phrase, a saying, a song title, anything that is happy or joyful that we can then put on the bench for you. You pay for the bench as the person that's looking to do it. That's $1,250. We, the borough, will install the bench for you. We'll even pay for the plaque, which is like $80, and we'll take care of it. And that way we're replacing our old benches that are old and worn out. And these people are still getting a memorial, but in a positive light. And that's where we're kind of running into issues. The Rec Commission brought it up at our meeting just a few weeks ago. A couple more are coming up, and it seems to be a lot at Everhart and or Marshall Square, but it has happened at literally all of our parks over the years. And the discussion I want to have with the committee is, where do you stand? How do you feel about it? I mean, do you think we need to come up with something more concrete, or we can just literally, if these happen, especially within your wards, or if you know about them, you can always refer them back to the Parks and Rec Department. We can always use benches, new benches within our parks, and they're getting replaced not at our cost, but at the person who's looking to have the memorial. Our guys are qualified at Public Works to obviously put the park benches in. We'll get the sign made for them, but I guess the crux of it comes down to, do we want our parks looking like cemeteries, or do we want them to be a little bit more vibrant or happy places? So that's kind of my question back to y'all.
What do you guys think?
I think you have an opinion on it.
And ironically, in a lot of places, parks and cemeteries are one department, but that's not the case here.
I mean, I've seen these around other towns and at the beaches, and they seem like there's some examples we could probably draw from if we don't want them to feel like they're, I don't know, bringing the mood down. I'm not sure I don't have a huge opinion on it, quite frankly.
My best friend passed away. My childhood best friend passed away in her 20s. I actually had moved out of town and had lost contact with her, and came back to Everhart Park and found her tree. It was quite upsetting. And then the most upsetting thing was the plaque disappeared. She has quite a bit of family in the area, and this was important to a number of people. I'm aware of that. But I do think it's a very touchy subject, and it goes back to the maintenance of the rain gardens. If we're not truly spending the money to make these things last and protect them, what are we offering, and what are we?
Well, to answer that question, the benches the benches we'll take care of, we'll replace, we'll take care of it. And they're not going to get knocked over by a mower or a weed whacker, running by a tree base to knock over that little plaque that used to be there. Those memorial plaques that are on the benches, you would have to put in some serious work to get those off of there. And I would hope that no one would do that. But that's exactly, we ran into the issue several years ago, is like, people came back and said, where is my grandparents' plaque? And we're like, We didn't even know it existed. So part of the rec commission's plan was to, again, we take an inventory of what's there currently, or like literally like get started on this ASAP. Here's what we have. We know what's in the ground and we know what's there now. What we know is that we've put there is on the benches. Everything else is literally just kind of maybe came up through a friends group, maybe just came up from a private citizen. We don't know. So the idea is to take an inventory of what's there now, know what we put there as the borough. We can maintain and upkeep that. And like I said, the benches will last for decades. We'll replace the wood. That's a cheap cost. The wrought iron will stay there for a long time. They're concreted into the ground. But these other ones that have popped up, I have 2 or 3 that are in my office that literally, I've been here almost 20 years and don't know who these people are. They've been removed from the parks, and those people from those parks have never reached out to me to say, where is Sally's this or Joe's this? I don't know. So I'm just trying to look at a way and some guidance and some ideas from you too. Like, I think the idea of taking an inventory currently, knowing what we have, and then coming up with a little bit more sound plan moving forward. Again, the idea of keeping them on the ground at the base of a tree, I think is out. They're going to disappear. They're going to get knocked over. They're going to be damaged. And then it's a bunch of finger pointing who's at fault. We have ways of doing this on our benches. And like I said, if you look at it at the Friends of Marshall Square Park, when they did their bench drive, their benches were $3,000 a piece. Ours are less than half that. I think they're just as nice. And we can literally we're replacing benches every year. I would eventually like to have all benches in our parks look the same so we can get rid of the old stone and wood ones. We go to these wrought iron and wood ones. They're a good cost. They're extremely durable. And I'm not getting a ton of requests for these. Now, if we make it public and the ones that are kind of just sneaking up on us, maybe that becomes more of an issue. But we've had 3 or 4 requests for bench naming rights, I guess you will, in the 3 years that we've instituted this. So it's not an overwhelming amount of people doing it. And I think we can accommodate those in the future that have that same idea. Again, I'm just kind of looking for a little guidance because we've talked about this several times in several different iterations, but we don't have anything, I guess, specifically concrete. And again, seeing where you guys stand, what your opinion was too. I have nothing against people wanting to commemorate their loved ones, but I just think we can do it in a better way.
I love the idea of consistency with the benches. I am disturbed by the inconsistency. And I do appreciate the not making it a memorial, saying something like paid for by the Friends of, and this name, something, I have no idea what the real wording is, but something much less somber.
Like if you look at this one, these guys, it's a father and son. They own a bike company together, and it's a little picture of a bike, an old school bike, and it says from one wheel man to another. Cool. Like again, no one may get that idea, but it's not somber in tone. And in his mind, with his family, they know that, hey, we're 2 guys that worked on bikes. Well, it's kind of cool. So.
I mean, it seems like a very personal decision. I think I would just give, if we wanted to do naming on benches, I would just have a range of options. I don't really have anything to offer beyond that. I mean, it could be, if somebody wanted to do, I don't know that we would, if they wanted to pay for it, I don't know why we would keep them from saying in memory of, or something that's a little bit more upbeat. I'm not quite sure.
Again, this was just the opening of the discussion for this round. What I'll do is we're going to start working on the inventory. I say I'm going to start working on the inventory and find out what we have in our parks. I'll use the Friends groups to help me with that process. And I'll look at surrounding townships and even, like you said, down at the shore, just looking at places that maybe have something like this more in place. Again, just the crux of it behind my idea, and I think I've made that clear, is I want our parks to be happy places. I don't want you to go there and see a bench that, was, again, well-intended, just I don't think the right location. That's all.
Well, I think we agree that on the benches, what we really didn't talk about was the ground markers, which do disappear.
Yep.
And some people spend a lot of money on those things because I've just seen a couple. And we just, I remember cemeteries going along after holidays and removing all the flowers and all the stuff, and you just have tombstones there.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into that business, but we can't stop somebody from coming and putting something like that at the base of a tree. But if it's enter at your own risk, because we can't support
No,
You're putting something there.
it's borough, again, Sean and I had spoken about this for another topic, but again, it's a borough park.
Yeah.
You know, we're in charge of the perk. Like, again, is it a tripping hazard? Sure. But who's walking that close to a tree that's going to trip over it? Maybe the same guy that drives into a bump out. I don't know. But I will bring back more information to you guys in
Yeah.
June, whatever next month is, and hopefully have a little bit more detail.
I wouldn't want to be the person that walks to the tree and takes that away.
I don't want to take
Yeah.
anything away
Yeah.
either.
So
But
if it appears that it's there, if it disappears, it disappears. But we should probably tell them we don't support that kind of stuff.
I don't think
Don't
we
you
can, we
think?
can do that with
Yeah.
social media and the website as well.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Action items. Motion to approve bus shelter grant funding agreement with Chester County. Mr. Williams, it's been a long time. Haven't seen you in a while.
Thanks.
It's good to see an old friend.
So if you'll recall from the capital improvement plan for this year, which I'm sure everyone is committed to memory, there's a $15,000 project in there for a capital project for a bus shelter. The genesis of this was we were actually approached by Chester County Planning Commission last year. They have a grant to deploy bus shelters throughout Chester County. So they're looking at ridership data, and the vast majority of bus stops are not enclosed in any way, which is a huge detriment to ridership, really. So they approached us. They have High and Linden Street in mind. It's right by the Saxby's coffee shop. It is the most used bus shelter in the borough outside of the transportation center on Market Street. You can head on down there, hop on the bus, and go all the way to 69th Street Station along Westchester Pike. So before us is a grant agreement with the county, and the action item tonight is that we recommend that to Borough Council next week for approval. We priced out a bus shelter last fall during budget season. We got a quote for $14,100. It's a very small, compact bus shelter. It's the depth of the one over by Melton Center that was installed during the development project there. It's 3 feet deep, and depending, there's all different lengths, but we have 10 or 12 feet in mind there because it's right away. There's, I think, 11 or 12 feet of sidewalk. So we want to be careful about how much space we take up there. The county would pay $10,000. Okay, so backing up, $14,100. That's where the $15,000 budget came from. The county will pay the first $10,000. We talked to Public Works. We feel confident that we can install it. We talked to SEPTA and made sure that they're doing a lot of post-pandemic work on rerouting. And we talked to them today. Actually, Kelly mentioned that in their report, to make sure that neither anything they're doing nor PennDOT's project on South High Street, which is going to tweak a lot of those intersections with pedestrian access in mind, will affect that station. And they confirmed, at least verbally today, that it won't. So that's the gist of it. We ran this by Kristen. Her recommendation, her pretty much sole recommendation was, we want to confirm with the county that we're agreeing. So we have to take on maintenance, which we think will be pretty basic, probably just graffiti removal, maybe a power wash from time to time. But we need to confirm with the county that we're not agreeing to maintain a bus stop there forever. We're agreeing to maintain this bus stop because they're funding it this initial time until, it's degraded beyond its useful life, or someone hits it and destroys it in an accident. So that we're waiting on confirmation of that from the county, and should have that by next Tuesday. And I think that's all I wanted to say about it. So I'll take questions if there are any.
You have any questions? Have we reached out to the university at all for support financially?
Yes.
And they said no.
Yes.
Why did I know that? They're our best friends in this town, I'm telling you. If it wasn't for them, we'd have a lot of money in stream protection. Thank you.
Yeah. The county said you could procure it with ready-made slots for advertising and you could
Yeah.
sell ads. I don't know if that's a business we want to get into, but it could help defray cost of maintenance.
I think that we need to think about that. I've worked on bus shelter designs. They're awesome. I love them. An advertising space is definitely something that we need to make a clear decision on. If we're not going to do it, I want to make sure that we decide sort of publicly that we're not going to do that, or we decide to do it and then we really need to maintain that. I would love to
It's too
see-
far out of the bid. John does our parking garages and stuff now. We have an agreement. That's way too far out of the bid district. Yeah, and so we wouldn't expect the bid to help out down there. And, you know, it's either we're all in or we're not.
Yeah.
It's because they're going to get ratty. They're going to get mustaches drawn on people and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
By
So,
me 15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe 20. Maybe we could reach out to the university again and rather than just, with a handout, ask them if they would be interested in advertising in exchange for a fee. And that way we're not like in the advertising sales business, but, just working with a partner to do it perpetually.
Or we could ask the university, do you want to advertise on it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, that way it's their stuff and they
Yeah.
got to maintain it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a new president starting soon, so maybe they'll be happy to do that. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Don't stay away so long. We miss you.
I'll try.
Every time you come, we bring money. I like it. Thanks. All right, let's see. Motion to approve April's Public Works Committee minutes? Any issues? Okay, very good. And we have one other thing on new business or other business. Want to come forward, please? State your name, your address, and why you're here.
My name is Mark Skillman. I'm at 102 North Everhart Avenue since 2003. And I'm here to see if I can get an extension on my dumpster permit, which is actually a pod for a mobile storage pod on the street while I'm renovating my garage.
So the long and short of this is he has a permit for construction. He has a dumpster in the yard. He has a pod in the yard. It's taking longer to get it done. And so he needs only council can extend the permit another 30 days. So that's why he had to come to council instead of just going through Public Works, because even though they initially do all the upfront stuff, and we never see 99% of those, the extensions always have to come through council. So you have any issues?
This isn't like a business you're secretly running
No.
and there are children living in it and none of that. You just got a job that you haven't gotten finished yet.
Yep. It's-
And this is going to be gone within the next 30 days.
Well,
How-
actually, I still have 2 weeks on the current permit, so I'm just extending it 30 days beyond that initial permit. So it'll be the end of June, basically.
Is it causing any issues with parking? on-
No, I'm in a
Quiet.
non-zoned
Yeah,
area. I'm
you're
at
fine.
102.
He's on top of the hill by Bishop Shanahan.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
where he is.
Yeah. He just wants to have fun with you.
I-
She don't want to go home.
Truly
But
feels.
the kids are waiting for, her.
I'm okay with this.
Mr.
I'm
Betcher, get
sorry.
the
I
free
know this is truly small potatoes compared to what we're talking about here tonight. So
Thank you, Mr. Skillman.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Meeting adjourned.